like to call this meeting in order. Thank you very much for coming out. Could you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start into our agenda, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. First, what I would like is there's been a very horrific train accident over in Seattle-Tacoma area, and so what I would like to do is just take a moment of silence for those victims, and then we will proceed from there. Thank you very much. In our comment period here tonight, what we want to do is make sure that nobody talks about the campaign that's going on. No 7-person, 3-person. It's just to follow the rules, which we want to do. And so I think just remember, all comments, no one talks about the campaign that's kind of coming in. So if you please do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Item number B is our weekly commission reports. And Commissioner Moore, did you have some activities this week?
Not very many. I have a Mason Transit Authority board meeting on Tuesday. I noticed on the way down here that our city crews are out putting out traffic information, so I appreciate that, working out in the rain and cold. So thank you for that. I appreciate the response. I wanted to make one announcement, is that the county has decided not to do a levy shift. We were scheduled to have a Shelton Metropolitan Parks District meeting tonight. However, that will not be necessary. Our finance director will present an update at next week's Shelton Metropolitan Parks District meeting. And that's what I have. It looks like Craig wants to say something.
We can give you a quick update on the traffic situation out there. City crews have placed message boards at in the Bayshore area, directing traffic to use Johns Prairie Road to 101. And anybody who misses that exit is also seeing message boards directing them down Front Street to Railroad Avenue. And we have been in contact with WashDOT and Washington State Patrol, and they are currently flagging the intersection at First and Railroad, pushing traffic out Railroad to 101 so that they're not going through the Highway 3 section that gets pretty bottlenecked with those traffic signals. And we will monitor the situation, and if we start to see backups at 7th and Railroad, we are going to turn that signal off and block off the north-south lanes and let traffic flow through to 101. So we've been working on that since about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So
wow.
We seem to have it under control at this point. There are some backups in areas like the 4-way stop out on Wallace, Neelan, and 13th. But other than that, everything seems to be going fairly well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McDowell?
I have one meeting tomorrow afternoon, my CareNet board meeting, and then I have several meetings this week with some citizens. That's my week.
Thank you. Tuesday, tomorrow, I will be having a staff briefing. On Wednesday, I will be attending my monthly criminal justice board meeting. And what I like to do at this time is ask if staff could please try to set up a class for the new commission coming in the first week or two of January. And that class, what I'd like to have in there is information on public disclosure rules, on the Public Records Act, and open public meetings rules, so we can start our fresh year off knowing more about those. So hopefully we can get, because we have a new commission on around the 1st of January, I think we probably could have a little class or something to kind of help us, educate us about those matters. So, thank you very much. And that concludes our commission reports. And at this time is general public comment. Please, if you're speaking in general, that's the general public. If you're speaking about anything else, make sure your conversations stay within the confines of the subject matter. So, at this time, do we have anybody signed in?
Yes, we're going to start with Mark Ziegler.
Well, this is an unusual thing.
I won't take offense to that, I don't think. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm here to represent Christmastown, Kiwanis tonight and read a letter thanking the city for the efforts on Railroad Avenue. Christmastown, Kiwanis would like to acknowledge the efforts of the City of Shelton Street Department. We just completed our annual holiday magic tree lighting and Christmas parade in downtown Shelton. Your dedicated employees were a huge factor in making this fun family event the best ever. Dealing with volunteers is not an easy task at all times. They were always willing to help us as we work through the various issues that arise when you produce an event such as these. We also like to pass on a positive comment from a visitor one of our members recently heard. Leaving an event, a visitor from Mount Rainier area made the comment that your downtown area is very beautiful. It made my drive here very enjoyable. Please pass this comment on to all your employees and thank them for your efforts. Leroy Valley, President of Christmastown, Kiwanis. So we want to thank all the city staff that put in all the efforts leading up to the Holiday Magic event and the Christmas parade.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
That was
Mark. All right.
We have Tom Davis.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor. Tom Davis. As you know, I haven't been here for well over a year, and I'm not a resident of the city, and I no longer own property in the city, and I had hoped that I would leave you to your business and you would leave me to mine. And it's, I have contributed significantly to the city, whether I lived here or didn't live here, so I feel I have the right to speak openly about certain situations that have occurred, and it's not my intention to keep them alive, but I figure they need a response. I just wanted to let you know that regarding the emails that were disclosed, I am personally offended by what had happened, and I say personally because at some point they were rather personal. I sat at home waiting for my apology, but it didn't arrive. So I have to assume that there won't be much of an apology coming except for the general apology that's been submitted several weeks ago. More than my own personal feelings, and I do business outside the county, so I could care less what members of this board feel about me personally, and the people I work with could care even less than that. But I would say that there are people who do work within this county, people who get their living in this county, who have been negatively impacted by some of the comments that were made. If I were working within the county, if I were a contractor or owned a photo studio or any other retail or commercial establishment, you would be getting hit with a very, very, very large lawsuit. And so I was wondering if you had anticipated any of that going on, because it being such a small community, it's and the customer base being so small, you could have a detrimental effect on people within the county, and it would not surprise me if there was a lawsuit forthcoming. You could probably get in front of that if there was a personal apology to the people you offended. I would advise that, and that you meet with them personally, or maybe write a letter of apology. It won't be the first time that I would have written a letter of apology. We all do these kind of things from time to time, not quite to this extent, but I would simply suggest that you meet and make it personal. Make your apology personal and avoid some lawsuits, and also avoid the negative image that you've cast upon the city. Thank you. I have to go to a DAV meeting, so I apologize for just walking out.
That's
But
all
it's
right.
not my intention to just turn my
No problem.
back.
Thank you for coming
Thank you.
back. Next.
Bill Hall.
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Bill Hall. I live up on Mountain View. Just for the record, I've had the pleasure of serving with both Gary and Tracy in the past, and I'm a little bit troubled about what's going on down here in the city. I I'm not impressed with the rock fight. And as Mr. Davis just said, it's not a good look for the community. I have a couple of questions as far as the information dump that we got, some over 1,000 pages. And I've gone through some independent review on them. And I have a couple of questions for staff, and I don't know if this is the time to do it.
Can't do that.
Okay, we can't do that. Well, my concern is the mass redactions that appear in this information dump and where they occur. And my mission is to find out whether they are. We know that they're not firsthand, okay? Because when you delete something in your email and whatnot, your social media, it goes away. But when it occurs secondhand, we see a big black line. And typically, when documents are redacted, we'll see, a little blurb here that gets blotted out, somebody's phone number, somebody's address, somebody's email. What I'm concerned about are the huge amounts of actual text that are redacted, okay? And I don't think we have the nuclear codes here in Shelton. It boggles my mind to imagine that there needs to be that amount of redaction, in a small community like this. So what we have is and your FOIA request as they come, staff is obligated by statute to, protect the privacy. There's a list of 9 things, I won't go through them here now, that they have to abide by. There should be redaction codes to accompany that work that they do. And I know it's murderous. I know they hate it. They hate FOIA staff. I mean, let's be real. Now, what I'm concerned about here is the reintroduction of this stuff into the public arena. Okay, you have public information, and it's being introduced into the public arena. Now, my question is who did what redacting? See, because you've got the originator, who would be the primary. You have staff, who's doing their rightful job, due diligence. Okay, that would be the secondary. And then you have the website.
Could you finish up? You got
Oh, my time's up.
Yeah,
Okay.
one sentence. Do you have a
more.
closing
Thank you.
comment? Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Josh Johnson.
Good evening. Josh Johnson, 1226 West Alder Street. I spoke at the last commission meeting regarding the homeless problem I was having at my business, the Shelton Athletic Club, and the places I do business with around town. I've been speaking about this issue for over a year now, and still no response from the commissioners or the mayor. Since the last meeting 2 weeks ago, my staff and I had had at least 3 altercations with transients at my place of business. Since I have not been contacted by the commissioners or the mayor on this issue, I decided to request the public records from the Shelton Police Department. They are regarding all the incident history that they have had to respond to over the past year on what I call the hot spots in downtown Shelton. And this is what I found. Safeway, 49 of 78 calls last year from the Shelton Police Department responded to were transient related. Neelan Park, 50 of 62 calls. Post Office in Brewer Park, 51 of 65 calls. St. David's, 69 of 72 calls. Mason Transit Center, 124 of 136 calls were transient related. And finally, at my place of business, 9 of 11 calls were transient related. Littering, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, warrants, trespassing, theft, property damage, domestic assault, public intoxication, assault, vagrancy. All of this information you have access to on a daily basis. So ask yourselves, are these numbers acceptable to you, to this town? Not even close as far as I'm concerned. As I said earlier, I've been raising questions about this for over a year now. Your silence on this issue is deafening. I am only left to speculate on why you aren't addressing this issue. It's not important to you, or you don't care. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And just, we don't usually respond to these things, but I do not know you personally, but I would be more than happy to sit down with you and talk for however many hours you want to talk about it. I can explain everything that I have done, everything I'm involved in, everything I know about. My door is never closed to anyone. It's just I don't know who you are. So now I know who you are visually, but if you would like to leave your phone number with me, I'd be happy to sit down one-on-one and talk for as long as you want. Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I am standing to speak again on an issue that I spoke about a week or so ago, and that is in support of Kathy McDowell and Gary Cronshire. I believe that these two people have been subjected to an organized smear campaign and hateful attacks that are totally over the top and disgraceful. Over the past 2 years, I've attended these commission meetings and witnessed the hard work and dedication of these two to make Shelton a better place to live and to get our 5th schoolhouse in order. It's very telling to me, and I hope others, that the people attacking them don't really come or care about what's happening in Shelton, because I've never seen or heard them speak at these meetings over the years that I've been coming. No, it seems that they have an agenda, which is to get Gary and Kathy out of office any way they can. Both Gary and Kathy have apologized for what they've done, yet week after week I'm in here and I hear that those apologies were not good enough or not enough. I think that we need to move on. I think it's childish and petty to keep saying that they need to do something else. And I just want to finish saying that it seems to me some people just aren't happy unless they're trying to hurt others. But this is beyond wrong, and it's hurting our city. Gary and Kathy, you're appreciated, and please do not give up because of these ugly attacks. Shelton needs you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have Jason Coots.
Jason Coots. Today's a very important day in the history of Shelton. After decades, the people in Shelton are finally realizing the change they've asked for is here. The change is honesty that's come to the commission. Even though you choose to work behind the scenes in an illegal fashion, people in Shelton can now trust that the truth is coming out. In about a month, my website, dangercup.com, has a little over 3,000 unique visitors and over 11,000 page views. 3,000 people are looking at your words. When they contact me, they explain how disappointed they are in your lack of leadership, and how your words have created problems for the city you were put in charge of. And the people are ready for it to stop. To address the smear campaign and hate, I don't hate you guys. I don't hate you guys. I hate the idea of the process being circumnavigated. I think the city should be ran the way the process was meant to be ran, and what you guys have done was gone around that. 2 weeks ago, I spoke at the meeting. I urged Kathy to come clean if she deleted public records. She chose not to, so here we are again. The Journal detailed dozens of illegal Facebook conversations between Gary and Kathy that were included in Gary's record. And now Danger Cup has the entire 600 pages of Kathy's message, and it's clear that she's deleted things on her end. It's absolutely clear. There's no mention, or there is also a mention of deleting a group thread that included Gary and Kathy, which apparently stuck because there's no group thread. I'll read right from RCW 40.16-10. Every person who shall willfully and unlawfully remove, alter, or destroy a public document is guilty of a Class C felony and shall be punished by imprisonment in a state correctional facility for not more than 5 years, or by fine of not more than $1,000, or by both. I'm here today asking, is this what the commission's come to? Don't we deserve better from our elected officials? I also want to touch on the latest shipment of public records that I have. I waited twice as long and got half as much. There's so much redacted from this installment that it seems like other things are going on. I get the city's been under a lot of pressure from the media and the press. I don't think there's a good reason for things to be held back now. There's no way that both of those pieces of information, both those shipments of information came out under the same policy and rules.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to recess out of our regular meeting right now, and we are going to be going into a public hearing concerning our comprehensive plan. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jason at this time.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the commission. It's been a long time coming. I suppose I should start with that. The city initially started this process back in 2014. Really got underway in earnest in 2015 when the commission decided to adopt a couple of proposals, or adopt for consideration a couple of applications for UGA expansion. And in any event, we've seen some staffing changes on both the city side and the county side, which have offered up a few roadblocks, speed bumps as it were, here and there. So what would normally be roughly a year and a half process has taken us about a little over 2 years to get here to this point. So we are here finally to hold our formal public hearing on the City of Shelton Comprehensive Plan update. Okay, thank you, Chuck. The update is intended to get us through to the 2036 planning horizon. Any comprehensive plan total update you do covers a 20-year span. Our last update was done in '07. This particular update included an environmental impact statement, primarily due to the inclusion of a couple of UGA expansion areas, which I'll explain in a little further detail later. The commission reviewed most of the elements in the plan over the course of the last 2 years, and it's detailed in the staff report. I won't bore you with all the details. But you saw drafts come on nearly every element with the last comprehensive look at the entire document. That occurred in February 2017 when we released the draft environmental impact statement. At that time, we held a public meeting, not only before the commission, but held a public open house to answer questions from the public about the different alternatives considered in the environmental impact statement, about the potential impacts, kind of the direction some of the information was leading us to. And we did receive comments from 3 residents, WashDOT, that's the State of Washington Department of Transportation, and the Squaxin Island Tribe. I'll cover those a little bit more later. The entire document is based on what's called a population allocation, which is the estimated population over the planning period, over the growth period, as it were, through 2036 that we work out with the Mason County. In this case, what the expectation is based on Office of Financial Management numbers, the county and the city agreed upon what's considered the medium growth projection for the planning period, which we need to plan for, in the city's case, an additional 6,080 people within city limits, and 3,520, and these are approximate, these are planning figures, in the city's urban growth area. What we found through our housing analysis that was performed prior to the February draft was that without one of our UGA expansion areas, we didn't have enough capacity within the city and UGA to accommodate this growth that we might see in the next 20 years. So, with the comp plan update itself, in general, we updated all of the population figures throughout the document. We, I'd like to point out that the current comprehensive plan basically identifies a similar growth. The one that's in effect right now, I anticipated a similar amount of growth from 2007 till I think it's 2025, but of course we had the recession. The recession pretty much stopped development for nearly all comers, and in our case, I think we went negative for a couple of years. So we actually lost population for a few years, and now we're starting to climb back out. Based on the numbers offered by Office of Financial Management, we, as I said, we do need to consider expansion of our urban growth area to plan for this residential growth we may see. So the map that's on the screen right now illustrates the two urban growth area expansion considerations we have. The one on the upper left of the screen is what we refer to as a Dayton Airport Road Commercial Industrial Area. This is an application actually put in by the city, and it was based on some grant funding that the city received through the state that was sponsored by the then Commissioner Shelton at the county, and it was for an economic kind of development analysis of that area as an employment center, as envisioned in our economic development element. So essentially that area is roughly 600 acres and is envisioned for commercial and industrial type uses. The area in the more central portion of the picture is advocated by Green Diamond. That is a 300-acre piece of property they own that they would like to be considered for inclusion in the urban growth area for residential development. It's all part of their larger plan in the county to consolidate their development rights in many of their logging lands in more urbanized areas with city services so that they can better preserve the rural areas for rural uses. Basically keep them in perpetual timber forest land, not develop them with the low density housing you typically see in the county areas, but rather concentrate it in a more dense fashion in the city's area where, as I said, urban services are available. The Goldsboro Heights expansion area basically envisions developing uses similar to what we saw in the Shelton Hills master plan community. Fairly dense residential development, some neighborhood commercial type uses, while the Dayton Airport Road Business Center, as I said, it attempts to get some new employment-based lands, which relatively speaking we lack in this area. The EDC sanctioned a study that is pointed to in the plan that looks at industrial lands and commercial lands across the county. In theory, we have a sufficient amount of lands, but they're all basically held in independent ownership, smaller sized pieces. They're not close to highway access. They don't have urban services, water, sewer, these sorts of things. This particular site essentially has that. We have city services out there. It fronts on a state highway. It's basically in the study's estimation got all the desirable needs for an employment center. So we took those numbers, we took the amount of growth the city would see without the urban growth expansions, and took the urban growth expansion areas, and updated our transportation element. This required a bit of working to update because since we did the last comprehensive plan, we've approved the EIS for the Shelton Hills Master Plan, which had a great deal of transportation information in it. We also had to consider the expansion areas and incorporate that all into the current transportation element. What I should have pointed out a little earlier is in your packets, you guys received an amended, I believe it's 6 pages, although I gave you the last half of the transportation element with a large amount of information contained in 3 tables that's highlighted in the document. Now, you've also received a letter that I received late Friday from Hall Equities Group. They are the proponents of the Shelton Hills Master Plan development, where they didn't disagree with anything in the element. What they had requested was better specificity in what's called the city's 6-year and 20-year transportation improvement program. So what I've given you is a much more detailed, A, 6-year transportation improvement program, which the Public Works Department recently updated, but B, it also establishes and prescribes dollar amount improvements for each of the improvements, not only in the 6-year, but also in what's called our 20-year improvement program, which includes the bulk of improvements that would be included in the Shelton Hills development. Now, the element as it was previously written had more of a, catch-all estimation. The improvements are going to cost us approximately $66 million over the planning period. In this case, nothing's changed relative to the proposed improvements, relative to where they would occur. All we've done is display them in a more readable fashion, assign dollar amounts to each. The overall improvement amount is the same, the impacts are the same. So this isn't what I would consider a substantive change. I guess that was a very long-winded way of saying that. It just provides more specificity and I believe addresses the comments they provided on the plan. I have not heard back. I emailed them a draft that I've provided to you this afternoon, but have not heard back on that. But I imagine this is going to fulfill any concerns they had with it. As far as the housing element is concerned, we added policies. I'm just touching on some of the more significant changes because what I didn't say at the beginning is, even though this has taken us 2.5 years, this really isn't a sea change in direction for the city. The plan required a surprisingly few amount of updated policies. There are some that I'll try to touch on that we had to provide because of the state review. Part of the reason you do these periodic updates is because the state updates state law, and then we're in turn required to incorporate that into our plans and policies, if that makes sense. So in the housing elements case, there were some very basic policy updates, but the ones I keep bringing your attention to is one that was recommended by our poverty task force, that we had stronger policies to encourage affordability, but also what I've identified in the plan is that the commission, if adopted in this fashion, staff will come back to you in the future, probably in the summer, sometime in that range, with an affordable housing incentive program, which is allowable under state law, and there are certain parameters we have to follow, but this housing element, because affordability is certainly a concern in city limits, this would provide some incentives that we might be able to consider for developers to provide more affordable housing in city limits as we grow. The capital facilities and utilities elements used to be two separate elements, but they were very overlapping in their dialogue. They covered a lot of the same subject matter, so we decided to incorporate them both into a single element. They were updated for some of the required policy updates state law requires. It formally stipulates that we're adopting our water comprehensive plan and sewer comprehensive plans as we update them. Those are ongoing. I believe Public Works has started the update on the water comprehensive plan recently. The other elements are largely untouched from what you saw in February, absolutely the same. The Parks and Recreation element simply attempts to coordinate with the Parks and Recreation Management Plan, which is in the process of being updated. The shoreline element, we recently updated our shoreline plan in 2013, did a minor amendment in 2017, earlier this year. So these goals and policies just reflect what we've already adopted. The historic preservation element stayed the same. Economic development element was updated to reflect some new growth figures and some updated population information, economic information, that sort of thing, but largely the policies and goals stay the same. And the UGA element, similarly, just updated to reflect current conditions, population, and growth projections. As far as the EIS goes, we did release the draft environmental impact statement in February. As I said, we received comments from 2 state agencies and 3 residents. The EIS, I'm trying to think of a concise way to describe it. It considered 3 alternatives. One is do nothing, don't incorporate the urban growth area expansions. One is it had a higher density of commercial development in the industrial area, and also a golf course included, like a golf course community in the residential area. Well, based on, when we initially started this process in 2015, the city was considering what's called a planned action ordinance for these two areas. A planned action ordinance basically would allow any future development to rely on this environmental review as their environmental review if and when a project came in. Based on the comments we received, in a nutshell, we have gone away from that. We're not recommending a planned action ordinance, and we went with alternative 2. That's what's incorporated into the comp plan. That's basically the higher density residential development in the Goldsboro Heights area, the one that's advocated by Green Diamond Resources, and the, I believe it's a lesser intensity commercial development in the Dayton Airport Road area. As far as impacts go, it's important to note the Goldsboro Heights area is a 300-acre piece of property. We identified approximately 200 acres that we believe should be retained in permanent conservation because it straddles both sides of Goldsboro Creek, contains some very steep slopes, and we kind of just wanted to lay out, put it on the table that future development needs to consider this basically at a minimum, because we didn't do detailed analysis of the resources at the site. These are basically 10,000-foot review of the site, and it's easy to discern wetlands on the site, the steep slopes, and the aquatic resources that are there. And the applicant agrees with this. I mean, they would do more detailed studies if and when an application came in, but basically at this point we're looking at about 200 acres in conservation for that piece. As far as the Dayton Airport area goes, there is a headwaters to the North Fork of Goldsboro Creek that starts on that property. So we identified approximately 60 acres of that piece of property that would be in conservation. Now that would hold true even with future environmental review on it. It's not like they could do it and say, oh no, that the headwaters doesn't exist. I mean, we've basically documented these resources exist, and we certainly would carry that forward with any review of projects in the future. I suppose the only other notable, I just went back a slide again, we had hoped that through this process we could rectify a discrepancy between the county and the city critical aquifer recharge area maps. And really all we could do through the process without delving into a much more comprehensive study of the geology and hydrology is that, yes, in fact, there is a difference, which we already knew. But the upside is our maps identify the critical aquifer recharge area as a higher intensity, basically warranting higher protection than the county map. So at worst case scenario, we're over reviewing. That's the stance I'm taking. On a moving forward basis, what we're hoping to do is work with the Goldsboro Groundwater Working Group and the Squaxin Island Tribe as they develop their groundwater model for Goldsboro Creek and Johns Creek, and we're hoping both the city and county can use that information and put it into a much more usable groundwater model, if that makes sense. So it's not like we're brushing that off to the side, but it seems work that's ongoing may help us in that endeavor, since we weren't able to rectify it through this process. Pretty much any other impact you could identify, as long as, you know, appropriate practices and codes and policies are followed, we're not identifying any significant impact. As far as traffic goes, there is a rather lengthy list of future traffic projects that would need to occur, but that goes without saying for any development that occurs in the city over time. It's just, what it points to is we need to be diligent about updating our transportation plans. We need to be diligent about reviewing projects for cumulative impacts on intersections and such, and doing those improvements in a timely manner so we don't create negative impacts. That's essentially it. I mean, we're going to hear some public testimony, but barring any changes or maybe additional work staff needs to do to address questions or comments, we are recommending you do a first reading of the ordinance tonight that would adopt the comprehensive plan and proceed with a second reading, final action at your next meeting. But again,
Okay.
I'm here to answer any questions you might have. And
Well, maybe we'll get any public comment at this time, and we can ask some questions and we can talk about this. So is there anybody signed up for any public comment at this time?
No, we have no one signed up.
Okay. So now would be the opportunity if somebody was here from the public. Yes, Mike?
Mike Olson.
Okay. Did he already sign the little card? Got to fill out the cards now.
IKE. My question is on regards to the critical aquifer recharge area. That 600 acres is privately owned, is that right?
It is. It's primarily owned by the Hunter family, but it also includes 2 private landowners and the state of Washington,
So
State Patrol.
the cost of determining the between the county and the city's discrepancy, who bears that cost to find that out? Does the private landowner have any cost involved in that, or is that strictly on the city and the county to determine who's got the?
I would say it's firmly on the jurisdictions. We are the ones, the history of the critical aquifer recharge area maps is kind of interesting, because back in the 2000s when they were first developed, the late 90s, early 2000s, as near as I can tell, we both developed our maps in a joint process. We used the same information, we used the same consultants, but somehow our maps are a little bit different. It's quite odd. And when you look back through the information, it's hard to tell which map is right, which map is wrong. But like I say, ours is more stringent in its application. So
through the development of those maps would dictate to the private landowners how much of that they can set aside besides the 60 acres, and all they have to set aside, or any other remedial things they would have to do.
Excuse me one second. To follow our protocol and the way we operate this meeting, generally speaking, public comment is your comment about something.
Okay, that's my
no
comment.
interaction with staff. It's just the rules, and we want to obey the rules. So, do you want to answer that for the good of the order?
Certainly, yeah. It's a great question. It would basically, any development would proceed like it would now for any development that's in the critical aquifer recharge area. We have an ordinance that identifies, based on what type of use you're doing, there are certain either studies you need to provide, best management practices for stormwater control, if there's hazardous materials that might be on site, like in case of a gas station, let's say, you're going to have an underground tank on the site. There's certain protocols you need to follow to ensure that you've got secondary containment. I mean, a lot of these things are covered by state law anyway now, but my point is the ordinance is very specific, and depending on the type of use, that kind of sets the tone for the type of information and the type of protections you need to provide. And the last thing I'll say on that is, an example I'd provide is if somebody wanted to do a residential development, let's say, a low-density residential development as compared to an industrial development, you're going to be required to do far less, more than likely, for the residential development than you would for the industrial development. Does that make sense? I mean, it's based on the intensity and the risk factor, as it were.
Okay. So, at this point, I think what we'll do is talk about it and have our questions answered, and then we will decide where to move from there. So, any questions or comments for Jason?
Yes, I have a couple of things. On the map of the CARAs, did we adopt the map that was produced by the Squaxins, or do we have a hybrid of what we used to have and making it a more high intensity?
It's the same map we've had.
Okay.
I think what's confusing is, I think during the draft process, I think I did relay to you guys that I thought we would be able to update the map based on this process, but it wasn't the case. I apologize for that. We're basically holding to the same map the city's had since the day we initially adopted the critical aquifer recharge area.
Okay, so did we change the classifications then? Is that what we did?
No.
Or it's just the same exact?
It's the same classifications and everything.
Okay.
We've always, for some reason, I forget what the hierarchy is, extremely, very, but we've always maintained the higher classification of our aquifer, where the county has it one step lower. But in all honesty, the regulations are largely the same, because they're both very sensitive. I mean, whether it infiltrates 50 inches an hour or 10 inches, it's still a lot of infiltration. That's really what this points to, is these soils up there, generally speaking, infiltrate groundwater pretty quickly.
Okay. And then I just wanted to offer a compliment, and I've been reading comprehensive plans for a long, long time. And this one is actually a thing of beauty with the very nice maps. I found the maps at the end extremely informative, and I think eye-opening as far as the number of critical slopes that were identified throughout the city. So,
At this time, I think it's appropriate for me to point out the person behind the curtain. I could not have done this without our hired consultant. We hired a firm called Burt Consulting, and Erica Rett, sitting behind me, has been my liaison at the firm, and she's been great to work with. And I honestly couldn't have done it without her help, so I can't take the credit for this at all.
well, when I think back to the first time I was on a planning commission with Mr. Hall, it was a very different document that we were looking at, and so I'm very pleased this is so much information. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, and every attempt was made to make it more concise, because when you read the existing plan, it felt like it was regurgitating the same information in several areas, and we really tried to cut that out to the extent we could. So it makes it a more readable document, I think.
Couple things jumped out at me. One is we have known for a real long time that we have very few actually industrial sites. And I think I read in the massive amounts of information you've given us, 154 acres, does that seem, of industrial property? We have 154 compared to 4,000 or.
Offhand, I don't know. I know the number's somewhere in the land use element, but
Yeah.
it's
No, well, it was buried in all
Yeah.
of stuff. But so the 600 acres is zone commercial industrial. Is there so much as commercial, so much as industrial? Is there a number there? So.
I don't recall the exact acreages, but if you look at the land use map, which is figure 1 in the document, and I don't even think I have the figure. I didn't attach the figures to mine. If you can we go back to the graphic, Chuck? I think I can point it out better this way.
I'm just seeing staff in that.
I know.
I don't know.
That's a graphic, all right. One we don't want to look at. In essence, there's a triangular piece of property between Ells Hill Road, which is the road that goes out to the former landfill, the Mesa County Transfer Station, and 102. Do I have a pointer on this? How do I use it? Huh?
If you're taller, you could actually walk up and do it, but I don't think you're that tall.
It doesn't show up on the screen. But there's a triangular piece in the left side of that square. Do you see the big square? That's the Dayton Airport Road area on the upper left of the map. There's a triangular piece on the left-hand side. It's got two roads coming off it. The one on top is Ells Hill Road. The one trailing off downwards to the left is 102. That area in that triangular piece would be general commercial, basically more identified for visitor serving uses. And the thought there is that it's close to the track, essentially. You've got the racetrack out there. There's been some stated desire for some uses out there, even a hotel, as it were. And then the rest of the area would be a mix of what we've identified as targeted business uses, which include like food processing, information technology. This is at least what we reviewed it for, and wood products, of course, because we have a lot of wood products in the community, things of that nature. But really, at this point, the way we've structured it, I mean, we've done a review, we've made some estimations on what the uses could be out there, and developed a transportation improvement program that addresses that and looked at utilities that could potentially serve it. Any development that went out there would have to undergo its own environmental review.
So was the answer to my question yes or no?
Well, it was yes, but I didn't know. I don't know the exact acreages. I was just pointing out what area was slated for commercial and what area.
So really, anywhere within that 600 acre, if you had somebody that really wanted to put industrial thing, it could fit within the 600 acres. Is that what you're
If you remove out the 60 acres that are identified as the headwaters, and that's a minimum, they would have to go out and do some on-site wetlands delineations. It may grow. We're estimating the 60 acres is a minimum. And they're outside that triangular piece, then yes, in theory.
That's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
Thank you. Another thing that I was wondering about, I think you made mentions of it, that the growth projections for the Shelton's growth, we had them pretty high a few years ago, but then I think they're not as extreme as they were a few years ago.
Interestingly enough, it's the same growth projection given by the state, the medium growth projection developed by Office of Financial Management, but that medium projection is lower than the medium projection before, if that makes sense. What they're projecting through the 20 years now is about 9,600 people, and I think in the existing plan for the same 20 years under the medium growth projection, it was over 10,000 with the 07 plan. Am I roughly right? Somewhere in there. So it's the same growth projection, but the projection is lower. Does that make, it's kind of confusing, I realize, but.
It's a lot of information.
That's the state Office of Financial Management.
Well, I looked through it and I read through it, and it looks like it keeps in a long line with previous documents that we've had, and I'm glad that we're adding some more property into our UGA, and so I have no questions, more questions at this time. Do Commissioner McDowell? So the only, and the one question I had is, we just got the letter, you got the letter from Hall Equities Group, and they pointed out some, and you responded to that. If we vote for first reading tonight, you know, is that still acceptable to you that we do a first reading? Are they had time to get back in touch with us?
I emailed it this afternoon to them, a draft, and giving my take on the comments. I have every reason to believe the changes I provided address their comments. And there is an argument to be made that the existing draft you had before the changes met GMA, the Growth
Right.
Management Act, and the state requirements. I mean, this is basically us just being a little more specific in.
So you feel comfortable tonight having a first reading?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I feel comfortable too, so. All right, well, at this point, is there any other comments or questions for Jason? Hearing none, we're going to close the public hearing and return to our regular session. And at this time, could we please have a first reading of the ordinance and place it on our action agenda for December 26, 2017 for the final action and approval?
Ordinance number 1915-1217, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to land use, amending and updating the City of Shelton Comprehensive Plan, including 2 urban growth areas, area expansion requests, which include amendment to future land use map.
Okay, does that meet all of our requirements and rules and motions for that section? Thank you very much. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. As my fellow commissioners had ample time to review the information in the consent agenda, are we ready to vote on that?
Yes.
Okay, could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Voucher number 16143 in the amount of $8,119.48. Voucher numbers 935 through 1070 and 16119 through 16139 and 16142 in the amount of $685,957.90. Vouchers number 16151 through 16246 in the amount of $317,773.58. And we have minutes from the business meeting of December 4th, 2017, and study session of December 11th, 2017.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. The consent agenda passes. Thank you very much. Moving into item number F, which is our business agenda. We have an update on our C Street landfill, and at this time, Craig Gregory will give us that information.
So just a quick update, since the last update that we had back October 30th on C Street landfill, Aspect Consultants has started some test well monitoring wells, drilling out on site. They started last week, and they are going to drill 6 test wells out there to gather groundwater information, and they should be done sometime next week. And that is all we have to update on C Street. We do ask that you take public comment on the update.
Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak about this?
We have no one signed up.
Seeing no one stepping forward, I believe all you want us to do is just acknowledge that you talked to us.
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
Craig, I have a question.
Go ahead.
How
Absolutely.
far do the monitoring wells go down?
Sorry, I didn't-
How far do the monitoring wells go down, the wells that are going to be?
I don't know for sure, but I will certainly check on that and get back to you. I think it's going to vary in the locations that they've got up there, but we'll certainly get that information and get back to you.
And they're looking for,
They are looking for not only groundwater, but gases, and also the depth of the waste that's in there.
okay.
So they're gathering quite a bit of information out of those. It's their main avenue to get, or informational piece to get, so that they can actually look at what is actually there and what's going into the ground. So
So there'll be 6 of them and they're placed at different places, right?
that is correct.
Okay,
But we'll get you that information and get back to you
Okay.
next week.
thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
Thank you very much. All right, moving to our action agenda. First item is number 1, and that is a legislative agenda, and that will be presented to us by Andy.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. As we discussed last week, the proposed 2018 legislative agenda is a combination of capital funding requests as well as general policy issues that were identified by members of the city's leadership team. All those items are in direct reflection of the 4 budgeting priorities that were identified by the Commission for 2018, which are public safety, economic development, technology upgrades, and furthering the downtown vision plan. The resolution you have before you simply formalizes this list as the 2018 legislative agenda and allows city staff to move forward on submitting appropriations requests to members of the 35th District for consideration of sponsorship. Unless there's any other questions, I would ask that you.
Well, maybe first let's ask
Yeah.
public. We'll do the public one first. We have a number of items here. So anybody sign up to speak on this agenda?
No.
Or this, okay. So is there any questions or comments for Andy? We went over this last week. It looks good to me.
Yeah, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
So at this point, is there a motion to approve resolution?
I move to adopt resolution number 1114-1217, a resolution of the City of Shelton, Washington, establishing the 2018 legislative agenda.
Is there a second?
I do need to read that.
You
Oh,
want to read it? Could you please read that into the record?
Resolution number 1114-1217, a resolution of the City of Shelton, Washington, establishing the 2018 legislative agenda.
do I need to make the motion again?
No. I think we can accept that. Yeah, we need a second.
I will second that.
So we have a motion and a second to approve this resolution. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The resolution passes. Thank you very much. Item number 2, Post Office Park. Mr. Mark Ziegler.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Bringing forward today the lease extension for the Post Office Park. As I stated last commission meeting, the 20-year lease is expiring on December 31st, 2017. So in order to work on a lengthier lease, if you will, we needed a lease extension that would run through June 30th of 2018 for both parties to hash out the agreements. With this agreement, the restricted parking would stay in place, the 20 stalls on Franklin, combined on Franklin Street and 2nd Street, and the city would maintain the park facility with our existing staff. With your approval, we'll enter into the lease agreement, mayor's signature, and then bring back in 2018 a longer-term lease.
Is there anybody signed up for public comment on this issue?
We have no one.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Mark Ziegler? I like the park, so. Is there a motion to approve this park lease extension?
I move to approve the post office park lease extension and authorize the mayor to sign on behalf of the city.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Park lease extension passes. Item number 3 is another Public Works grant project here, and we're going to turn it over to Craig Gregory, our Public Works Director.
Thanks, Mayor and Commissioners. As we talked about last week and a few times even before that, just need to accept the TIB grant for Turner Street. And I will try and keep these short since there are quite a few of them. So if you do have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't have any questions.
That was so quick, it took me by surprise. Yeah, we went over this last week. We love grants and we love fixing our roads, so any other question? Is there anybody signed up from the public that wants to speak on this particular issue? No. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Gregory? So at this time, I would accept a motion to approve.
I move to accept the Arterial Preservation Program grant by authorizing the mayor to sign the fuel tax grant agreement and the project funding status form for the Turner Avenue project.
I will second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The grant passes. All right. Item number 4. This is another Public Works project here, and concerning some pumps, so I believe. Is that the pump one?
Threw me for
Sorry.
a loop.
No, wait a second.
second.
Grants, that's right, I'm sorry, it's another grant.
I was going to switch up and just go with you there, but.
No, let's just keep them in order, I'm sorry.
So, again, just a grant acceptance of the TIB grant for the Alder Street Downtown Connector Project. And again, we are just looking for final acceptance so that we can move forward with this project.
Okay, is there anybody signed up to speak, public comment? Have to do that. Any questions or comments about
Yes.
this?
Yeah. I don't remember if we've been given this number or even if you have this number yet, but what is the amount of the REIT dollars that we can use?
The REIT in particular, or all of the funding sources?
Yeah, the REIT in particular.
The REIT is a projection for next year. This year, we were right in the $80,000 range.
Okay.
But it's all driven off of real estate excise tax. So it really depends on how that housing market continues to perform. We're anticipating that it's going to be somewhere in the same range that it was for this year.
Okay, well, that is very good news. I remember a few years ago it was 40,000.
It's been down as low as the upper 20s, so yes, we have certainly seen a rebound and had some extra funds to do projects with.
Great. Okay, that was all I had.
All right, any further questions or comments for Craig Gregory? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to accept.
I move to accept the Urban Arterial Program grant by authorizing the mayor to sign the fuel tax grant agreement and the project funding status form for the Alder Street Olympic Highway North project.
I will second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, passes. Thank you very much. Now we're into the pump discussion.
So as we discussed last week, replacement of a aging pump in the Capitol Hill area that pushes water out to all of those customers in that area. The original budgeted amount for 2017 was $40,000. Staff worked really hard on this project to come in under budget. It's about 15% under budget, coming in right at $34,000, and we have finished up and on that project and gotten final inspections by not only the state but our staff also. So we are looking to just move forward with final acceptance of that project.
Does anybody from the public want to weigh in on this? Nobody? Anybody signed up for public comment? No. Nope. Okay. Any questions or comments?
No.
If a pump breaks, you got to buy a new pump. There you go. Okay, I would entertain a motion to accept.
I move to accept the Capitol Hill Booster Pump Station Upgrade Project and authorize the mayor and commissioners to sign the final acceptance form.
Second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. And Mr. Craig Gregory, you seem to be the most, more things
one more
are,
for you.
you're the guy tonight, so here's another one for you. So do you want to talk to us about that?
So, Mayor and Commissioners, this is the first time that you have seen this project, and the final approval for this one. We have talked about it in the past, but it is something aligning with the agreement that we have with Washington State Patrol through the latecomers agreement that we would like to get done by the end of the year. We are finalizing the latecomers agreement payment with Washington State Patrol. That will be coming forward next week. But this is something that we would like to stray from the three-touch rule and get action on it tonight if you feel comfortable. This is the amendment to the funding agreement for the Upper Mountain View pressure zone. So just a recap of this project. Originally, we had a loan for just over $9 million to complete the Upper Mountain View pressure zone project that had multiple phases to it. The commission agreed to not move forward with about half of that project, which was a new well one, a new storage tank up in the Mountain View area. So by doing that, we cut that project virtually in half. So originally the agreement was for a loan forgiveness of 23.25% of the $9 million. And the way that we took advantage of that was getting one of 5 exempt wells offline and disconnected and onto our services. And we have completed that. That is something that we will be bringing back to you next week. We have completed all aspects of that for the loan forgiveness. But originally that loan forgiveness was just over $2 million at about $2.1 million, if and only if we would have spent the full $9 million. So after discussions with the state drinking water revolving fund staff, we negotiated a new loan forgiveness. They were very excited to get Washington State Patrol off of a sensitive well to the aquifer up in that area, and they have agreed to grant loan forgiveness of 50% of the actual expenditures of the $4.4 million, which gives us a loan forgiveness of just over $2.2 million. So we have negotiated more loan forgiveness on about half as much that we expected to spend.
Yeah.
So we are very happy to bring this back to you today and would like to take action on it, like I said, if you are comfortable with that, and I can certainly answer any questions for you.
First, does anybody from the public sign in on this one? Okay, so any questions or comments for Craig Gregory?
No, this is just really good news. I'm glad everything's up and running, and the loan forgiveness is a definite bonus.
It has been a very long time coming.
It has been.
We weren't sure how we were going to get one of those 5 exempt wells offline, We tried to work with Mason County and were unsuccessful with them out at Public Works, and finally struck a deal with Washington State Patrol to get them disconnected. And we are happy to hear that they were ahead of schedule and actually got theirs disconnected and filed with the state to get that well disconnected. So
Great.
Excellent job.
Yeah, good job.
Excellent job for you and your department on this one, especially negotiating and on grants and loan forgivenesses. You know, you're in the groove on that one, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So at this time, I would entertain a motion.
I moved.
Yeah, pardon me?
Oh.
I think we have a reading.
Oh.
The reading
Oh, that's right.
First? No reading first? Just a motion. Okay, sorry.
I move
Okay.
to allow the mayor and the finance director to sign the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Amendment Declaration.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We have a new item number 7. I'm going to turn the meeting over to our city manager, Ryan Wheaton, at this time to brief us.
Mayor and Commissioners, we had anticipated bringing forward the budget, 2018 budget for you to vote on tonight. We ran into some difficulty Friday afternoon about 2:30. We received a letter that we provided you. We also put up on the website today at the end of our packet. So one of the issues that is obviously going on in the community is the difficulty with the county's budget, and we are now feeling the impact of that through our jail, or through their jail and our services that we use. We had anticipated continuing with the rate of bookings, or the jail booking rate that we had at $85. Friday afternoon, we were informed that that rate is going to go up 20%, and we were given 2.5 weeks to either accept that or the county will exercise their 90-day termination right in that contract. We have put off that decision until next week, which is also the last week that we can make a decision on the budget. The difficulty for us here is that we either need to decide whether or not we're going to accept the 20% increase, or we're going to find some other place to book inmates. And obviously, you're not prepared to make that decision tonight. It's news to you as of today, and was news to us late Friday when we tried to go over. We did make it over. Police chief and I made it over to discuss this with the county commission today. We also had a discussion with the sheriff and his team, and Police Chief Moody can fill you in a little bit on the details of what we're dealing with now, and also what his team is experiencing with the jail situation.
Thank you, Ryan. Commissioners, just so you give you a little background on this, for years there was a constant billing and budgeting issues for the jails. About 2 years ago, we entered into a contract that was forward-thinking and outstanding for the time. Is what we said was we will pay for 7 beds at the jail, no matter if we use them or not, every day of the week. So we know what our set budget is, we know how many beds we have at that jail, and we entered into this contract with an agreement of a certain rate for 3 years. Like I said, Friday, or Ryan told you Friday, this was delivered to us via clerical staff at the jail that said, we're going to increase next year's by $43,000. And we weren't prepared to handle it on Friday afternoon, and tried to have meetings with the sheriff Friday afternoon, and they were unsuccessful. Looking forward, basically, at the end of the letter, it says simply, should the city choose to forgo the rate increase, let them know by January 2nd, and they will invoke the 90-day notice of termination in the interlocal agreement, which leaves us some options that we need to explore further, and we're doing that now, which is, where do we go? Where do we go book? The jail issues that we've seen thus far have been, we have those 7 beds, but they're only allowing us to use for a certain amount of bookings as per the contract. And now they're basically saying either pay up the money or you're going to get out of the jail. And so we have to look at alternatives, whether those be Nisqually, Thurston, Lewis County, or something along those lines. And as you can imagine, that provides a logistical nightmare for getting people to jail on a timely manner. I'd be happy to answer any questions you got about this at all.
Well, I have a big question. Do we not still have a lease with them? Isn't that still binding?
It is, but they have a 90-day out clause,
Oh.
which many contracts have of this type of thing, which says, for certain reasons, this being one of them, they can choose to terminate the contract. And they've chosen to exercise that clause or have us pay more money.
That answers that question.
This contract was supposed to go through 18 into 19.
Yeah.
This is what we signed for, a 3-year contract originally, but midway through, this is what we're facing.
We also don't know that if you choose to accept the 20%, that this 90-day clause won't happen at some point in the near future. So that's one of the things that we'll discuss internally before we bring back options for you next week. If you choose to go forward with the 20% request that they've made, at this point, there's no guarantee that next month, 6 months from now, at the end of the year, that they won't request the same thing again or exercise that 90-day.
So basically, they've broken the contract and have shown a willingness to not bargain in good faith.
I wouldn't say that. It's their right to ask for an amendment. They've just done that before they've exercised their 90-day termination.
In answer to partially to your question, Ryan's correct, but we weren't given a chance to negotiate on this. And we attempted to do some today and had some discussions today about this.
Well, these are tough decisions, but I feel that we are going to make the right decision for the city of Shelton. It's something to think about. Again, I showed up and I just got it. And it being in communication with staff and with Chief Moody, we will have to determine what we need to do. And so we appreciate what you guys are doing. You know, this is one of those issues that we deal with that lots of time the public doesn't see until it's kind of right upon them. And so it's not a good situation for us at this time, but we're going to have to make some decisions.
And we'll keep you updated as different progress makes regarding options available to us.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I mentioned before that the budget's ready. Outside of this, we are ready to move forward, so we expect that we'll be back next week with that budget.
Okay. Appreciate that. Do you have any other administration updates at this time?
We do have one thing. We got word late last week about another grant, and so we are happy that one of our great partners in the community, PUD3, is represented by Joel Meyer, and we thought we would let Joel and Craig discuss a project that our team's been working on the last couple months.
A mutual discussion. All right. Come on up, Joel Meyer.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, we have been working for quite some time on the Relight Washington grant with Transportation Improvement Board. It wasn't something that we thought we were going to be able to get through with first discussions with them. We had already started with PUD replacing some of our high-pressure sodiums our streetlights to low-energy LED lights, and we had gotten through
about 500.
About 500 of
500 HPS lights were replaced prior to this. So we have 500 of the lights in the city of Shelton that were upgraded from the old high-pressure sodium lights, so the orange lights, to the light-emitting diode lights. And that was quite an effort. Worked out really well.
So that did give us some savings with our daily pull charge. And typically, Transportation Improvement Board does not reimburse for work that's already been done. But in particular, staff had worked really hard on this, and in particular, Logan Brady worked diligently on this and worked with our partners, the PUD, to present a package to Transportation Improvement Board, which fortunately was accepted by them. We got word on Thursday of last week that we have been awarded a grant for just over $266,000 that will go directly to the PUD to reimburse them for the lights that they have already done and the future lights that will be taken care of. The savings to the city of Shelton already has been about $20,000 a year. That will increase to, will be added to about another $20,000 on top of that. So we will be bringing forward that grant acceptance here soon. But just wanted to thank the PUD and all of their efforts with this. We certainly couldn't have done the job that we did and the package that we put together without Joel and his team at the PUD. So we really want to thank them for their efforts also.
And I'd like to make a quick comment from the PUD standpoint. The city will be saving $570,000 over 15 years. Not an insignificant amount of money for the city. And the PUD also benefits from this, not just from the standpoint that we're having a great project with you folks, but I'll get into that in just a moment. The city of Shelton, of course, looks forward to building stronger communities together, right? Public power works to be more powerful together. That's kind of a theme that we've been using this year for public power in the Pacific Northwest. And we've always been pleased to collaborate with our partners in the community. And this is one of those instances where we all benefit. Mason PUD 3 is under state law to reduce the energy consumption in its service territory through all practical means every year under the State Energy Initiative. And in this case, that means we're going to save 416,000 kilowatt hours of electricity a year just through this lighting program. That's about 35 houses worth of electricity. That's pretty exciting when you take a look at that we're constantly fighting to find ways to save energy for our community. So on behalf of the PUD, our customers, and our staff, and our commissioners, we'd like to thank you for allowing us to participate in this project. It was mutually beneficial to us, and also it was pretty fun to get this thing going. It was awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, anything else for the good of the order?
That's it for me. I think Vicki has one more thing.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the labor contracts that we're negotiating this year. We have 3 of them, and we've reached potential agreements with the Police Guild and also the Customer Service Group. You know, we have with our police binding arbitration, so that means we have to look around and we have to agree to comparable cities, and we did that early on, and I will be bringing a full brief next week on the agreement, the tentative agreement that we've reached. But really what the major points are for these 2 contracts that I wanted to talk about is that we had fallen behind our comparables with our wages and some of our benefits. So we did offer our officers a 5% increase for 2018, and then the next 2 years a 3% increase, and it gets us a little closer to those comparable cities. Also, we have our insurance through the Association of Washington Cities. The plan that we're on is being eliminated, so we had to negotiate a plan that provides, at the end of the day, there's a higher deductible and more out-of-pocket cost. And so we had to bargain the effects of those changes to our medical plans. So we've done that. We did not increase the premium cost, but we are going to ask that the Commission allow us to put in $100 a month toward a health reimbursement account so that some of those costs can be lessened, the effects by that reimbursement account. The same is true for the Customer Service Group. We have a 3-year contract with them. They had also fallen behind, so it was a 5, 3, and 3 with a similar deal with the medical. So those are the 2. We're still negotiating a little bit with the finance group, but I'm hopeful this week we can come to a tentative agreement with those folks as well, and hope to be able to brief you that on Monday as well, or Monday, Tuesday.
Okay, and what would you like from us tonight, anything?
Nope, it was just an update to kind of let you know where we are with the contract negotiations based on our conversations that we'd had earlier in the year and the authority that you provided to me and administration for negotiating these contracts.
Vicki, will you remind us what the comparable cities are?
Well, I remembered about 3 or 4 of them. I was going to bring them next week, but we use Chehalis, Port Orchard, Hoquiam, Sequim are 4 of them, and I think we have 6, so I'll have to remember the other 2. I'll be bringing those on Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
I want to personally thank you for the hard work that you've done year after year. For many years, you've been kind of our union negotiator, maybe not by choice, but you've done that, and you've done a great job for the city of Shelton. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. You know, it's interesting because when we're in there bargaining, you know, it gets a little
I've
difficult.
seen-
But we always walk out and shake hands, so
There you go,
it's been
absolutely.
been a good thing.
Any other questions or comments for Vicki? Our next meeting will be December 26, 2017, at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.